Welcome to Tampa's Table, a culinary journey. I'm Jeff Houck. I'm Vice President of Marketing for the 1905 family of restaurants. My guest today on the podcast is Patrick Harrison, Chief Marketing Officer for Visit Tampa Bay. Welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. It's good to be on my own show. I love it.
Thank you for having me. So obviously we're talking about the cookbook, but let's start a little broader than that. What is it about food that attracts people to Tampa?
I don't think it's just Tampa. I think food has become, and I think you said it once, food has become like a souvenir. Food is where people go. When you go to travel for a business trip or vacation, the first thing you do after you've booked your hotel is figure out where you're going to go for that special meal or for whatever meals. So I think that it's not just a Tampa specific thing. I think it's a lot of places. I think what was interesting for us at Visit Tampa Bay coming into this position when I joined about 8 years ago was I don't think the story had been told. I think, people think outside of Tampa and St. Augustine, there really isn't a lot of history in Florida. Everything gets demolished and rebuilt every 50 years. Everything that was cool 50 years ago is now a parking lot. It changes a lot. Whereas we here actually have some tradition. Obviously, very well with the Columbia restaurants, and then obviously Burns being one of the other pillars.
Sure.
We had something that we could tell. So, but what was very interesting with that was that I don't think at the time a lot of the people in Tampa, even the other chefs or the residents, really realized that we could build upon that.
I could not agree more.
So it was just something we thought, this is an entry to elevate Tampa and Hillsborough County beyond being like a second-tier city. This is something we can actually hang our hat on, and that was kind of the original goal for it.
What's the old thing about, if you have to say you're authentic, you're not authentic.
Right. Well, it's the people say, yeah, I have a great sense of humor. Sure you do. If you're having to say it, or hey, I'm a cool guy. Well, you're obviously not if you're saying it.
Right.
So,
but it runs deep in the history of Tampa, and one of the first reasons that people came to Tampa for non-work was the food of the Latin Quarter in Ybor City.
Sure.
So it's in our DNA.
Right.
There used to be breweries downtown. There was a huge manufacturing of bread and other things in Ybor City and down by the port and whatnot. So when you decided to do the cookbook, what was the genesis of that? What was the origin story of the cookbook?
I think it would, if you go back just a little before that, when we first decided that culinary was going to be something we were going to hang a hat on, there wasn't enough of a scene to hang a hat on. There was a few. I mean, we've mentioned, obviously we've got Mise en Place, we had Burns, we had Columbia Group and so on and so forth, but not a lot. So we wanted to find some more interesting and innovative people who really weren't that well known. And we started working with some of the brewery scene, taking those guys out on the road. Then it's interesting, I know one of the other podcasts we're doing on this series with, I think it was with Jamaris Glenn, is the whole crab chilao.
Yeah.
So, which I'd never heard of. I'd lived in the area
Extremely
for years.
Tampa.
Right. So the first thing we did was we took Greg Baker and Pharrell Alvarez on the road with us back when Greg was at the refinery. Obviously, Pharrell's still with his many establishments. Took them on the road, took them to New York, and we cooked live in the Food and Wine kitchen, and that's what they cooked.
What was the reaction?
The reaction, I think, was one of astonishment. Like, what the heck is this? You cannot put that in with that. And if you were going to serve it to food critics, why that? And I think they both chose it because it was specifically a taste of Tampa. So we started working with a few guys. After that, we came back, and suddenly a lot more chefs and restaurants wanted to come on the road with us. They wanted to spread that word. We've done dinners we're actually doing one in London this weekend for the Nat Geo show. We've got the chefs from the Epicurean are there with us. We've done stuff in New York. We've done stuff in DC, in Chicago. We're going to be in Atlanta in a couple of months' time. But when we had that genesis, that group together, we then said, well, the next step from this has to be, we have to get a way to present this to a larger audience. So what happened was I was in London having a series of meetings with journalists over there, especially food magazines, and this one company pitched me on the idea that they would produce a cookbook for us that they'd done for many other cities around the world, and it was very expensive. And I was sat there with our UK PR rep, Becky, and the person left, and we looked at each other and said, we can do that for way less money. So we came back here, brought the idea to the team. A couple of our team members who have gone on to do other things worked really hard and worked together. We worked with Amy Petsikara on photography because she is an absolute rock star.
Annie Leibovitz of Tampa.
She is phenomenal. And we put together what we thought in those days would be something we might sell a few in our visitor center, and we'd give them away as high-end gifts to journalists. So after we were on I think we've done 3 print runs. I think we've sold about 10,000. It just went crazy. We then rolled out a cocktail book. We then rolled out others. So we actually became a publishing company. But to be able to present, not even necessarily food journalists, but writers or people who are looking to bring a convention to be able to say, look, these are all the things you can see. These are all the things you can taste. These are what the chefs want to provide. And again, the most incredible thing to me is that so many chefs just say, yeah, here's my recipe. Here it is. You can have it. I'm not charging you for it. Go sell Tampa. Here is our, and you talk about, and let's say from Colombia's perspective, here's our 1905 salad that everyone around the world is doing a bad knockoff and posting on social media. Right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is that I always said that recipes were the first social media. It was, here's a dish. I made it for my family or my friends or my loved ones, and it was a success. I want you to have that success. It's like it translates immediately because it's not just handing an artifact. It's something you actually are meant to ingest.
Right.
It's an emotional experience. Right. And so to have this handshake collection of all the chefs and their recipes, I can't think of a better, more intimate welcome to Tampa.
Everything from small plates to desserts. I mean, if they had it, they were offering. I mean, the joke was that some of the recipes, are obviously produced by classically trained or culinary geniuses. Then you hand it to like the man in the street. So what we used to say to all the writers was like, just pick out which one you like the look of, and I'll take you to that restaurant and buy it for you, because it's, we had. There was a purple cake in there that the actual recipe was like 3 pages long with notes. And I'm like, no one's ever going to be able to make that, so, but that was it. That was the intro to it. Now, flash forward 5 years.
Right. So what's changed?
Everything.
Yeah.
I think that book and a lot of the things that have happened over the last 5 years really put Tampa on the map because of all the cool attractions and restaurants and the Riverwalk and Water Street and all of these things. It's the community has leapt forward. But also, if you look at the book, one of the things that's happened is, you get a cluster, you get this like mass where it suddenly works. And then the chefs start moving here from DC and New York and Austin, or coming back from where they may have lived here and gone to Portland, and now they're coming back. So we probably have, I bet you there's probably 100 restaurants that exist now that did not exist 5 years ago.
Without a doubt.
And
at all price points and types.
But conversely, just because of the nature of restaurants, there's also some that don't exist anymore. That's just how things go. They change, things become fashionable, things don't.
Right.
You take, some chefs, it's like decide they're going to become writers, or, there's only, I think this, it's one of the hardest jobs out there.
Correct.
So, it's a constant change. And so we want to portray the Tampa of today as opposed to the Tampa of 5 years ago.
Correct.
So,
well, I think that one of the seminal moments to me was when they started the renovation of Tampa International Airport. They had 5 local brands, of which the Columbia was one of them. And when they did the first phase of the renovation of the airport, they went from 5 local brands to more than 90. Right. And I had written an article when I was a food writer at the Tampa Tribune during the Republican National Convention that said, it's terrible that the first and last taste of Tampa will be at Chili's. And now
Chili's 2.
Chili's 2. It wasn't even like the original Chili's. It was like Rambo Part 2. And I wrote that, and I remember thinking, oh, that was kind of harsh, but it was absolutely true, because I'd been to other airports where I might not even be staying in town. It might be a hub, and I'd be moving to somewhere else, but I got a sense of what their food scene was by what they had there. Right. And now it was so popular at one point that they were issuing passes for people to go do eat-arounds. Right. So it tells me that Tampa is living through its food in a different way. And all the newcomers that have come here in the past, say, 3 years, they want to find a reason to love the place, and there's really nothing better than food and beverage.
So the airport's a great example. Now, you can order food from any terminal and have it delivered to the gate you're in, which is astounding. But it is great that you can go eat at Mise en Place or eat at the Columbia or eat at these very different options, even within the airport. And you see even the Tampa residents can't just, they have to get that last bite before they leave.
I can tell you it's a dramatic thing when at Eulalie and Airside Sea flames their oysters. And when you see flames in an airport, that's usually not something you see.
No, it's usually a bad thing.
It's usually bad. And so the smell of that, the show of that in an airport sends a nonverbal message about what the airport and the city prioritizes in terms of what impression it wants to make. I know people that will stop at La Segunda Bakery and literally stuff their suitcases full of Cuban bread so that when they fly home, they can put it in the freezer and slice it by day and still have it for a month.
Right.
There's no stronger reaction in a cockpit than when somebody gets on a plane with a 1905 salad and all that garlic, and nobody else has one but that person. I'm not saying I've done that at all, but the tense looks are real.
It's funny you bring that up. We've got on the road with so many chefs. It's when you actually get on the plane and they've got great big coolers full of raw fish or huge loaves of Cuban bread. You got bags full of stuff, and people are looking at you going, "What on earth are you doing?" It's so. No, but going back to the changes the last 3 years, or 5 years, I seriously get a call at least once a month from a chef somewhere else in the country who wants to come in and meet in our offices and talk about which part of town they should put their restaurant in and what type of food they should serve. And of course, I'm no food expert, but so we could only just give them the overview about, which areas have grown. Sure. I mean, when Richard opened Eulalie in that part of town for the north end of the river, everyone's like, what? And now look,
they told him it was crazy.
But he was right.
To your point, it was a blind spot in Tampa. Right. It wasn't a place that anybody really went for any kind of recreation.
So this is what we tell to the folks that are looking. So you look at areas that are growing, of which there are many. Depending on what type of food or style you're bringing in. I mean, are you one of the folks that can even afford to be in the Water Street area? Other areas in Hyde Park? Is the stuff in the Heights? What type of style is coming in? And, you see it. I work with the Michelin Guide to bring that to Florida. Everybody wants to be here now. So I think if we sit here in 5 years from now to do the next book, it could be encyclopedia sized.
Let's hope.
So
the other thing you talked about, the Michelin Guide. Tell me how that has sort of changed the conversation for Tampa's food scene.
It's changed it in many ways. And like everything, not everything is golden, because that does add additional pressure on some of the restaurants that are here or the chefs that are here. But I think to us, the Michelin Guide is only in a couple of different places in the U.S. In California, New York, and so on. Chicago, and I think there's a couple of others that are now looking at adding it. But the Michelin name is a global name. If you want to play on a global stage, you need to play with global players.
Sure.
They have a cachet, and a recognition that people think, well, if you're in that guide, then you must be worth taking seriously. So we were very lucky working with our friends in Orlando and Miami to work with Michelin a couple of years ago. I think it set a standard of or an aspiration for some of our restaurants, and I think some of them have to be authentic with themselves and realize, you may not ever get a Michelin star. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having...
There's nothing wrong for reaching for one.
There's nothing wrong with reaching for one. There's nothing wrong with Bib Gourmand or a recommendation.
Sure.
But when you talk to the guys who have been reaching for those stars, you see the pressure that's, this is a really high bar to set. And the fact that this year we were able to not only get our first 3 restaurants to get stars, but then also with Somi, best young chef in the state of Florida. I had lunch at Somi yesterday, and it's just a great little fun restaurant. I think it's that understanding that the Michelin Guide doesn't have to be, fine tablecloths and fine dining and, darkly lit, heavy mahogany, old school kind of places. I think it's does help set the next, maybe it's the platform for the next stage of development.
I see that. And the other part too is that especially in the past, say 15 years, people have started to travel for food in a way that they never used to. Food was the afterthought whenever they travel. They go see the Grand Canyon, they go see, whatever they were going to go see. But now it's as much a part of the destination as it is, it's as integral as, what are you going to pack in your luggage? Where are we going to eat? Who are you going to talk to ahead of time before we go and eat, before we go and get on the plane? So, having that international flavor of Michelin just expands that even further.
For example, we went to Los Angeles, and I went out of my way to go to the Edition in Hollywood because, Chef John Fraser was bringing, the Edition was about to open here, our first 5-star hotel. And I wanted to see what his food stylings were. People say, oh, he's vegetable forward, this or the other, until you've actually tasted it, and I wanted to be able to bring that back.
Yeah. I was at the Edition this morning for coffee, and the pastries there are immaculate. The breakfast area at the market there is just, incredibly upscale and unique, but very approachable for the neighborhood. And it's exciting, like I said, to have sort of outside chefs come in and sort of create a new standard and tone that other people can sort of mimic and make their own.
Right.
So I have to ask though, you travel extensively, obviously through your job. You're in local restaurants. What do you eat for comfort at home?
A lot of salad, a lot of tomatoes, a lot of mozzarella, burrata, because the downside of this job, as I'm sure as is with yours, you eat too much.
Yeah.
Eat way too much.
Well, so it's a lot of it's hard not to.
So it's a lot of chicken, salad. Really boring.
I thought you were going to say beans and
beans on toast.
Beans on toast. But
it's funny. I don't even remember the
black beans on toast or just beans on toast.
Just that would be good. There we go. We'll make it. We'll take it Cuban.
We'll do that fusion of UK and Cuban.
And we'll put it on Cuban toast.
There you go.
There you go. It'll be perfect.
So when's the cookbook coming out?
Well, hopefully, and I'm looking over here at my team. Hopefully it should be on sale in time for the holidays this year. It's going to be really excellent. We've got over 60 recipes, 50 something different restaurants. It's everything from, I think all of our Michelin starred restaurants are going to be in here. Plus, we've got some real good favorites from some of our more established or traditional. I think it's going to be excellent. My mouth's watering just thinking about it.
My mouth is watering too.
So let's go eat.
Absolutely. You made me hungry. Thanks for being a guest today, Patrick.
Thank you.
On your show.
Oh, well, thank you for hosting our show, Jeff.
Thank you for letting me be on it. So keep an eye out for Tampa's Table, a culinary journey, as Patrick said, comes out later this year. And keep an eye out for episodes of this podcast on YouTube and also anywhere you find podcasts. Thank you for joining us.